A bearish case for BNB. We see here in the chart the monthly closing of BNB in Tether and BTC in Tether, both in Binance. So the white line is BNB, the orange line is BTC, thus the columns of volume at the bottom of the chart are referring to BNB. So first point we mentioned that's not in the chart is that August and July were the two largest volume in a month traded in Bitcoin. So never in the Bitcoin history it was traded more volume than in July and then in August. So August is the topmost volume month in history of Bitcoin. As you can see here in BNB, it's not the case. Except for the first month that was November 2017, there was never a month where it was traded less BNB, and that's not good. So clearly, since we reached the peak at the first time in April this last year, the volume, the bottom fell from the volume, like it fell drastically and remained low, utterly low in BNB. In Bitcoin, it was similarly, but in recent months, more specifically the recent 4 months, the volume has increased sharply and remains so. Also, we can visually see that since mid or early 2018, prices of Bitcoin and BNB had shown the same curvature, like they have moved in tandem. However, clearly here, since May, they have departed, they have parted ways. So BNB prices remain floating as Bitcoin prices dive to the bottom at 20K. This is clear here. Now, let's put some numbers on this. This was qualified. Now let's quantify it. As we see here in the first candle of the chart, which is just the closing, I repeat, the prices of Bitcoin, which is the orange line, went from 10K, let's round it up. It's in fact, it is 9.8, but let's round to 10K to 20K in the whole extent of the chart, which is about 5 years. So we're talking about 2x in 5 years. That's roughly 15 to 20% per year, whether you compound it or not. So it'll be within this range. Whereas prices of BNB went from $2 in late 2017 to 275, at least when I started recording, it was that recently in current month. That's 135x in the same period. So what do we take from that? The prices of BNB have way more downside potential than prices of Bitcoin. Now, we see here, as we mentioned just now, the divergence, the pathways between BNB prices and BTC prices, and that made a gap. And as any gap, either the top moves down to the bottom or the bottom moves up to meet the top. Now, considering that Bitcoin is at its volume at the peak and BNB is at the bottom of its volume in its history. So it's likely that at least BNB will move down. Perhaps Bitcoin will move up, but to that extent, it's too much because if BNB is to remain floating and Bitcoin is to meet it, that would be equivalent a move up in Bitcoin till 40K. And we don't see this happening right now. Why? Because the scenario worldwide is much different than when it was rising. Well, when it rose, as we can check in our other ideas, the market cap of the stable coins were exploding higher month after month. They went from $4 billion to $133 billion, and since then they're shrinking. The interest rates were less than 1%, and now they are 3% plus, so that's 6 times X. And we have been a lot of deleveraging in the system already, not yet everybody. We're not out of the woods yet. So we are lacking leverage, which is what allows prices to expand through buying with more purchasing power that you would have otherwise. And that's very bullish when it's present and not when it's absent. So we lack the fuel to put the prices up. Currently, we are sustaining current levels, but to imagine that they will double in the next months, that's bit far-fetched unless there is excess of liquidity in the system as a whole. I'm not talking just about Bitcoin, but then we need, for example, Federal Reserve to print more money, and they are stating exactly the opposite. Thus, we don't believe that Bitcoin will launch to that level. Perhaps, as you can see in our analysis in other podcasts, to 25K, but that's not enough to close the gap. Now, considering that BNB prices have been hovering over this 260 something level, we believe that they will move down, but that's not all. It's unlikely that Bitcoin just remains there. So assuming for a minute, we are not stating that we expect that to happen, although we found it likely to, that let's assume what are the consequences that if Bitcoin prices fall to the minimum of the chart. I'm not expecting this. I'm saying what if. So we are talking about a move from 20K currently to 3.5K, which is the closing in 1st January 2019. That's an 82.5% decrease in prices. The same decrease in prices of BNB will take us to $45, and that's precisely this line here that I'm hovering over right now. However, the equivalent bottom to that one of 1st January happened in BNB a bit before in 1st November, and that was in $5. So if it BNB is to fall the same 82.5%, it will take us right to $45, let's say. And that's still, there's a potential downside of 90%, 90, not 19, 90% to until it reaches the corresponding bottom. That means the double of the downside, meaning you fall 82.5% to fall alongside Bitcoin, then you still need another 90% to catch up. So that's nearly the same fall again, a bit beyond. And it's enormous downside potential. Thus, in case Bitcoin falls, we believe that BNB is likely to fall way more. How much more? The double, between the double and the square of it. So if Bitcoin falls 20%, we're likely to see BNB falling 40%. That's our idea. That means that it makes BNB a special target for shorting. Why? Because its reward in case of a downward move is way higher than the one of Bitcoin, and the attentions will be focused on Bitcoin. So the buying pressure is not on BNB, it's on BTC. Thus, that makes the case that BNB is likely to fall way more once the fall is clear. Thank you very much for your attention. Looking forward for our next idea. Bye bye.